Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Welcome again, everyone, on this beautiful rainy day in Houston. You ever notice on rainy days there's a different quality in the light? There's a different kind of energy. It's more subdued. We can notice that the greens can seem more vibrant, even on an overcast day, and notice the rhythms of the rain. The other night, my 4-year-old daughter, Felicity, we were all on the patio, and she said, "Mommy, Daddy, shh." I'm like, what? So we were talking. She said, "Listen, there's music." And she was hearing the rain hitting the puddles and the ground, the cement, and she was just hearing the music, noticing the presence, the richness of just being alive and what's before us. There's just so much that's available. So I'm wondering, what did you notice differently today? Maybe you're in Houston and it rained for you, or maybe you're somewhere else and there was no rain. Was there something that you noticed differently that's part of your regular experience? You caught your attention because you're paying attention. That's my first question for our spiritual talk back. So this is an interactive service, and we would love for you to begin commenting on the questions that I'm sharing throughout my message tonight, because then we're going to share your comments, and it's just between us, just between you guys watching and us on stage, and we'll just share and just lovingly acknowledge the wisdom that you bring to this experience as we create it together. So what did you notice differently today? Share. We want to hear about it. Summer, this is a time of the year where there are summer camps, and I remember doing summer camp when I was middle school age, and it was an outdoor camp. We did sailing and swimming and all kinds of things like that, and so when it rained, it was time to do things indoors. So we played air hockey and foosball, table tennis, stuff like that, and it was fun. It was different. And today, when we're talking about becoming servants of peace, this is our series from Pema Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. She talks about if there was a summer camp or a boot camp, let's say, for learning to become a servant of peace. Wouldn't you want to go to that? That sounds great. I'd love to go to a camp like that. I think about it being like a retreat or like a preparation. The difference between a servants of peace summer camp and then like a boot camp is that instead of disciplining ourselves to defeat an enemy, we would be spending hours dissolving the causes of war at the level of consciousness. So imagine that. What a different approach that is to preparing to go out in the world as a servant of peace, that we begin at the level of cause in our own consciousness. Pema says this could be called bodhisattva training. So those who are called bodhisattvas are those who have committed their lives to a path of compassion. And so you could imagine leading this training might be Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa or His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But most likely it would be an ordinary person from your community who has dedicated their life to helping others be free of pain. And isn't that what we're called to do as we serve others, to support them in experiencing greater freedom? So my second question for you is, in what ways do you help others be free from pain? So it could be anything. It could be in your work. It could be in the way you serve your community through prayer. We just want to share in the comments about ways that you help others in your life to be free from pain. So if we're going to do this Bodhisattva Servants of Peace Spirit Camp, what would this training include? So this training would have to include the 6 paramitas. This is what Pema Chodron talks about. They are 6 activities of servants of peace. And this word, paramita, in Sanskrit, it literally means going to the other shore. So it is going beyond the notions of ourself, our personality, our ego awareness, to transcendent actions that bring forth the truth of who we are, the light that we are, the spirit that we are, the love that we are, our Buddha nature. These are actions that are non-egocentric. Okay? So the challenge of this camp, as we're joining together and becoming servants of peace, is to avoid becoming moralistic. So this is where we come together and we think that there's a certain way to be a servant of peace and you have to do it this way, or else you're doing it wrong, and then we come into criticizing each other's actions before we're even really serving. Pema Chodron talks about training that she did with Chongpa Rinpoche, who had devised a course for his students. And part of the course, they would memorize chants. And so they would work on these certain chants for months. And then once he noticed that everybody was really comfortable and knew all the words and felt like there was a certain rote way that they were doing things, he would change the words. He would also teach certain rituals, and he would tell the people he was teaching very precise ways to do these rituals. And then when they started writing them down and criticizing each other for doing it wrong, he would come in and he would completely change them, and they have to do them totally differently. And they would begin to print manuals with his trainings, and then as the manuals were released in print, they already became outdated because then he was changing it again. And after years and years of going through this training with this master teacher, his students began to loosen their grip, to relax on their rightness. That there is a certain way, and we do it this way, and we judge each other on the way. Relaxing their grip. And as you do that, the idea of a certain right way dissolves. What would it be like to be free of rightness, where you are the critic of the world and say this is a certain way to live and do things, and I notice who's not doing it, and I notice who's doing it, and I'm the judge. Letting that go and go and go and go. So my third question for you tonight, and I'm bringing the questions in early because I want to give you plenty of time to write in your comments, is how have you relaxed your grip in your spiritual life? What have you noticed that is a certain idea or way of doing things that you've given yourself some freedom, some leeway, or there's been some insight that you've received from another person or from within that allowed you to open up some space for greater possibilities? I want to hear about that, so please share about that in the comments. So let's talk about these transcendent actions that we're learning to take in our spiritual Servants of Peace camp. So the first action is generosity. Generosity is that journey that we take of learning how to give. And it is freeing because when we become afraid of losing, if you've ever been afraid of losing, you may notice tightening your grip. That if you have gone through an experience where you've lost your job, or you've had some theft in your life, or you've had some big bills that are overwhelming, or something where you feel like things are less than they should be. And our natural human tendency is to tighten our grip and to become stingy because we feel like, well, there's only just so much, and I've got to hold on to this. And this creates a sad and a stuck place in our consciousness. The antidote to this is to find a way to give, that there's always a way to give, and we can look into what do we have plenty of. One thing we always have plenty of is prayer and love, giving someone a call that we know maybe they're isolated, they've been home alone, maybe an elder person in your life who could use some acknowledgement and love and blessing. When we grasp and we cling to what we have, it causes us to suffer so deeply. And let's feel compassion for those people who, for ourselves when we do this, and for others who, through fear, get caught up in fear, and it causes grasping. Jesus, there's a wonderful story from our master teacher of a young rich man who approaches him and wants to know how can he be perfect. He wants to evolve spiritually, and Jesus' advice to him is sell all of your possessions, give them to the poor, and then you will experience treasure in heaven, and then come follow me. And so that was the very first step that he offered this young man on his spiritual path, and the man walked away sad because he had many possessions. And he didn't recognize. Could you imagine if you're in the presence of Jesus and him asking you to sell your possessions and recognizing that in doing that, you get to walk with the master teacher? And he just couldn't let go of that grip. So when we relax that grip, we can experience that there is a richness in life. We can find ourselves sitting in worry over something and not noticing the raindrops creating music in our yard, or the birds fluttering around the trees, or a caterpillar who's crawled up onto a leaf, and its beautiful way that it moves and adjusts its body in the flow. They're just things that are all around us that we can take in and recognize the richness of this human experience. Pema Chodron tells a story in this book about that on the spiritual path of becoming a Buddhist monk, one takes a bodhisattva vow. And when you take that vow, you give a gift to your teacher of a possession that you are very attached to, that you really love, one of your favorite things. And that one of her friends was taking this vow, and she spent a whole day with him, and he was trying to figure out what thing to give his teacher. And each thing he thought about giving his teacher, he was like, no, I can't. He became more and more attached to his things as he went through his things. He got sadder and sadder because he just couldn't part with anything. And it actually made him a nervous wreck, Pema says. He became so anxious at the thought of having to give up a possession of his, something that was his favorite. And she shared the story with a visiting teacher, and the teacher told her that this was an opportunity for her friend to develop compassion for himself and for all others who are caught in the misery of craving. The misery that comes when you just can't let go. So attached to things, ruling your life, ruling your thoughts, ruling your behaviors, your opinions of others, caught up in material things. So to be free of this, I ask you tonight to consider what you could let go of to help others. There are material things that could be a great help to people. Did you hoard up toilet paper and tissues and canned goods? Perhaps there's someone you know who could use them, or the Houston Food Bank, or somewhere you could donate it, or if you have books that you're done with that you could donate. Giving shelter to someone who needs a place to stay, or medicine. There are physical things. We can also give the gift of teaching. We can pray together, or teach others how to meditate, or share our spiritual books, share talks from Unity or other places that you could easily share with someone who's hurting, and a text or an email. Things that we can share where we can let go and help others. This is how we're training ourselves to be servants of peace. And so the next action is discipline. So discipline sounds like, you're going to tell me what to do and I have to do it all the time. This practice of discipline is really about commitment to our practice. Well, what is our practice, and what am I willing to commit to regularly to keep myself in the flow of my awareness of truth? When we commit to our practice, it dissolves the causes of aggression that arise within us. And it supports us in our evolving. So using the word discipline in terms of this Buddhist practice is not about badness or wrongness or about control. It's not about not enjoying pleasurable things in our lives. It's discipline that allows us to recognize any ways that we try to escape from reality or potentially escape from reality. So we come back to our practice to come into an awareness of the presence of the truth. And so this discipline allows us to be here and now and in the richness of this moment. So we have generosity, discipline, and your discipline may be coming to Wednesday Night Satsang, which is a wonderful way to keep your practice. Sunday service, a meditation class, a spirit group. We have more spirit groups coming up, if you haven't been a part of it, coming up this fall. This is a way that we undo our habitual, painful patterns by keeping a spiritual discipline in our life. So third is patience. Patience. They say if you pray for patience, you get more opportunities to be patient. But learning patience, this teaching tells us, is an antidote to anger and aggression. Here again, it's not grin and bear it, like, I just have to deal with the pain in my life and get through it. This patience is noticing in us our tendency to react, to jump, to push against our lives. And rather than react to everything in a habitual way, we pause. We take time to take it in, to consider, to be present, to be open to some other possibilities of responding to what is there. One exercise in patience in my life is gardening for me. Because with gardening, I'm there to support my plants, and different plants behave differently. I might water them all the same, and some are dry and some are too wet. Some may be growing like crazy, and then I need to make sure that I have a trellis available for them, somewhere for them to go. Some may be growing slower than others, and I'm just there to be and notice and to be in the process, and that has allowed me to be in a space of patience where I'm present. I slow down and I give more space to what is really there and what is really happening. And we can apply that to anything in our lives. So the next is exertion. So we know to be on a spiritual journey, it takes some energy, right? We need to bring forth our passion, our joy that gets us out of bed and into our meditation chair or our meditation bench to do our practice and to keep with our commitment. So it's not about guilting ourselves or pushing ourselves. It's about connecting with the joy of the journey. It gives us an appetite for action. In the chapter, Pema Chodron says, if we really knew how unhappy it was making this whole planet, that we all try to avoid pain and seek pleasure, how that was making us so miserable and cutting us off from our basic heart and our basic intelligence, then we would practice meditation as if our hair were on fire. Isn't that great? I love that. My hair's on fire. Okay, I need to meditate. But that's recognize the urgency of that. Our collective experience of trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure, and we're in this cycle, and that the antidote is so simple and keeping with our practice and allowing us to come back into ourselves and into the truth that we know. And so these are actions that are meant to shed our defenses. Every time we practice, it's like putting down a heavy burden again and again and getting to release. I recognize sometimes, I go, wow, I only sat for 10 minutes, but boy, I feel different. A different person has shown up from whatever had taken over my thinking in that time. So meditation is one of these actions. Pema Chodron said, meditation is the basis for an enlightened society that's not based on winning or losing, loss or gain. Boy, would that be a consciousness shift. I feel like I'm saying boy a lot, but I feel emphatic about it. That's my way of being emphatic. To get out of this idea that there's only enough for some. Some people win, some lose. Some people gain, some people suffer. And meditation opens us to an enlightenment where we can be in that state of mind that's unconditional, that's not oppositional, that's unconditional towards all. And so that's an important practice of being a servant of peace. And finally, prajna, wisdom. So our practices, these actions, cause us to connect with our inner wisdom that's always present beyond the monkey mind thinking. That wisdom has an ability to cut through the immense suffering that comes from seeking to protect our own territory, whatever that is, whether it's your opinions or your possessions. That wisdom cuts through that. And year after year, as we commit to our practice, we allow the masks that we have been wearing that have been hiding our true self to wear off and to dissolve. We put down the armor and we step into a greater experience of groundlessness that opens us up to the infinite of what is available here and now and our infinite nature that is ever expanding. So this is the training of the Bodhisattva, to be a servant of peace, to engage in these actions. Pema says we need Bodhisattva politicians, we need Bodhisattva police, we need Bodhisattva bus drivers and bank tellers and at the grocery store, parents. We need to transform our minds and our actions for the sake of other people and for our world. So this practice is vital and so healing. And so I hope that this sharing of this Buddhist teaching has inspired you into a deeper walk on your path and given you some insights into your spiritual thinking and actions.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.